Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. This morning on the broadcast, we'll be taking a look at the touting of the healthcare and affordable housing programs by President William Ruto as a turning point for the country's development and also the state of devolution. Governors some appeared before the Senate Finance Committee last week, where they expressed their concerns about the payment from the National Treasury or the Exchequer, which they say will have an effect on service delivery across the devolved units. But first, we begin with a look at the front pages of the publications, and with me in studio is Nyangori Ohenjo, as earlier mentioned, the Chief Executive Officer of Semiride. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you.
Lovely to have.
Asante sana. Nelson Koech is the lawmaker representing Belgut constituency, as well as the chairperson of the Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee of the National Assembly. Good morning.
Good morning, Ayub.
Lovely to have you here on the broadcast. Shortly we'll be joined by Narok County Senator Ledama Olekina, who will be with us here in studio. Gentlemen, let's first begin with a look at the front page of the Standard newspaper. Says the Raila dilemma, touted as enigma on the front page, says the paper. The opposition leader is yet again confounding friend and enemy alike. In Azimio, the succession battle is pitting Kalonzo Musyoka against Martha Karua as to who leads the pack should Odinga head to Addis. That is in the event he clinches the seat. In government, President William Ruto must make sure he gets the post, as failure will be his personal defeat. That is further highlighted on pages number 6, 7 and 8 of the publication. Coming to you first, Nyangori, is it surprising that there appears uniformity in support for Odinga's cause by both members of the opposition and government?
An interesting question. It's not surprising. It's a whole question of the political chess game in any political schematics.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at it, this is a position that is highly regarded. But then when you come back to domestic politics, you want to look at what kind of influence and power does the opposition leader, the Honorable Right Honorable Raila, have.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, at the both sides of the balance, you have people in the position who would, of course, really be happy that Raila can go a step higher and provide some space for them to operate within politically. And on the other side of the aisle, where we have the current government, they are saying, look, probably for us to be able to operate in an arena that doesn't have a lot of resistance, we probably might want to, you know, extend an olive hand to make sure that the leader of the opposition has something to hang on politically.
Yeah. All right. Honorable Nelson Koech, I mean, when you listen to leaders from across the political divide, we'll be coming to the soundbites shortly. What does it portend for the opposition first, and then second, the government, for in the event, hypothetically, when the elections are held and Odinga clinches, that's it?
First, let me say Raila Odinga is the opposition, and the opposition is Raila Odinga. Exiting of Raila Odinga in our local politics deals a huge blow to the opposition of this country. Because without him, to be, in all fairness and with all due respect to his other colleagues, the opposition is deemed to be, you know, very limited, if there will be any. Number one, and in the history of this country, there is no political survivor that has withstood time like Raila Odinga. He's given value to our democracy, given value to our debate and national discourse, and we wish him very well. I mean, it gets to a point where a man has to also call it quits. He's done so much for this country. Africa is looking after him. Africa is calling him, and it's high time that he takes that stab on the AU chairmanship. I'm very confident, and I like the fact that the country is fully behind him. There had been issues here and there. Of course, there are people who didn't want him to be the AU chair from within the country. But the president has, I'm sure, is going to make a formal announcement this week indicating the support of Raila Odinga as our nominee. If, as East African community, we are able to pitch for one candidate, because looking at where the politics are playing in the African, already the African countries, Raila stands huge chances. There are people who didn't want Raila to succeed and not to have him as a candidate from the East Africa community. And I saw some faces that are going to Tanzania trying to prop up former President Jakaya Kikwete, who has declined that he will not contest that position. So that leaves then Raila Odinga to be probably the only candidate from the East African region. That gives him a head start if we all back him as a candidate from the East African region.
Yes.
So as it is, I think we need, like you said earlier, there's a lot of shuttle diplomacy that should happen between now and next year. We have to talk to our friends. We have to talk to the countries that support us. Raila has all the credentials. In my view, he ticks all the boxes that are needed for him to take that position. This gives Kenya, first of all, profile, and the stature of a persona of Raila Odinga is an excellent candidate for that job.
Okay.
You know, in terms of opposition in Kenya, we probably then have to rely with people like Senator Ledema Olekina to help, because, I mean, no one is indispensable in political space, so to say. Raila has been an indefatigable person in the Kenyan politics, and we can only wish him the best. And don't be shocked that Raila will still call the shots, albeit remotely, but he's a person to watch.
Okay. You mentioned that there were some parties who are in opposition to Odinga's candidature.
Absolutely.
Okay, given that, I mean, when the likes of Moses Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Senator Cheruiyot, his counterpart from Kericho County, from Nandi County, Samson Cherargei, and the likes of Farouk Kibet, who yesterday expressed the support for Odinga, do they understand that it's not given, that there are no guarantees certainly around it? Because Ambassador Amina Mohamed, who he fronted in the last elections that ended up with the win of Musa Faki Mahamat, was a diplomat who had a proper understanding of the United Nations framework and also supported by the government. Then down to the line where it comes down to the Francophone and the Anglophone question. Therefore, what are the specific plot points that the government must look for to support Odinga's candidature up to the wire? Because it seems like it's not given.
You rightly put it. We will be looking at the Francophone countries to support us, and also the North Africa. If you've noticed, the chairman of the AU summit has gone to Mauritania, which is in North Africa. Now, I don't expect any candidate to come from North Africa because that is sorted. So what we will be expecting, therefore, if there will be any other candidate, probably is within the Anglophone countries. That will be a huge threat. But to my understanding, and looking at the candidates that are already being probed by different countries, I do not see a country that is as formidable as Raila Odinga from within the Anglophone countries. So up to this point, we want to say we are perfectly safe, but we are not safe. There's a lot of work that has to be done by both the government and by Raila himself. So it's not easy. It's a campaign. It's a campaign that I don't see the government going, I don't see Kenyan government losing. Like I said in my earlier remark, Raila Odinga has ticks all the boxes that makes him a very, very serious candidate for this show. Okay. On the issue of why if there have been people who have been against it, it is true. There are people in Kenya who their politics rely on Raila Odinga. There are people who, when there are different political agendas to execute, they would rather use Raila Odinga to prosecute such cases. I know of people, very powerful individuals, who are even in previous government, who are not comfortable with this government. They would rather have Raila Odinga leading demonstrations in the country than going and being the father figure in AU.
And who are they, to be specific?
They want to sort out local politics. I said key figures in last administration.
Yeah.
Okay.
There must be many because you're using the plural they.
You saw yesterday David Murada saying that Uhuru Kenyatta was actually going to go for this position. I mean, that tells you that there were people already who were working behind the scene to also take the stab on the same position that Raila Odinga is going to contest. But because first thing is that you must be fronted by your own country, the chances did not stand for them. Okay. And so it's not just the people who were in previous administration, even local politics. I'm sure people from my colleagues, I speak to my colleagues in parliament, particularly those one from Luo Nyanza, they're in a bit of like a dilemma, like the newspaper did put it. They do not know, because many of them have relied on Raila Odinga to succeed and not what they deliver for their people. It is going to be extremely devastating for many political lives.
Senator Ledamo Olekina, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for finding time for the broadcast.
Thank you very much.
Are you surprised by the sudden support by top government officials to support your party leader's cause for the AU chairperson position?
Nothing surprises me in this country anymore. I think this country is full of surprises, and so I'm used to them. You know. But I think we're missing the point here. We're missing the point because we have to front in a candidate, and I think my brother here said that Raila Amolo Odinga has to be fronted by Kenya, but that's not the case. I think he just has to be fronted by a member state, and I think it was important that the former president of Nigeria actually came in and endorsed him for that position. Let's look at Raila Amolo Odinga based on his qualifications, but not based on any other interest that people might try to be able to propagate. Because the truth of the matter is that Raila Odinga is experienced to be able to hold that position. You know, he played a key role in trying to shape the infrastructure development of Africa from 2013 to 2018. So really, he's got experience, and he understands the social economic landscape of Africa. So we have got to look at what it takes for you to become a good candidate and what it would mean for Kenya. In the same station, I reiterated the fact that Raila believed that we could have transport all the way from Egypt to Lake Victoria by drenching the Nile. So really opening that, network enabled member states to be able to develop. So we've got to look at his candidature not as something being fronted by the government side, but by, by member states. And I believe that he will get an endorsement of many member states because of his statesmanship. He has played a key role in trying to shape diplomacy in Africa. I gave an example of Congo, during the transition from Kabila to Tshisekedi. And the fact that he is known worldwide, you cannot compare Raila Odinga, sort of like candidature with Amina Mohamed. Amina Mohamed was an appointed person, to become a cabinet secretary in the foreign docket. Raila Odinga has been someone who has been known worldwide, not only Africa. So I think it would be for the good of the continent to have somebody who is already known by a lot of heads of states so that they can be able to have the African agenda. We have missed out on the African agenda because the people who have chaired that position have not been people who can become heads of states. So if you were to take Amina Mohamed, and she's my friend, so I cannot say anything bad about her, but her qualification is, it's like you're comparing water and oil. Those are two things that cannot mix. But if you look at the qualification of Raila Amolo Odinga, the position that he holds in this country, the position that he holds in Africa, the position that he holds worldwide, it is a key position that can be able to advance the African social economic agenda. I long for the time when we will have the United States of Africa. And that, I think, by getting Raila Amolo Odinga there, will be able to put us in the journey towards achieving a social economic development of one country.
For you, the opposition then, he has been the constant figure around who everything revolved. What does it then mean, suppose he wins the position at the African level in terms of the opposition's organization and the constant accountability required to hold the government in check?
Well, there are two things here. First of all, Raila is not going anywhere. I mean, Addis Ababa is so near. If he sits in Addis Ababa, it takes the shortest time to be able to fly back into the country. But I think there are different generations. And younger generation learns from, those who are currently the older generation. So I don't think there's a vacuum. I think we have a lot of young Kenyans who can be able to sit down. And, Raila Amolo Odinga has been known to consult widely. When you sit with Raila Amolo Odinga, he seeks the opinion of each and every individual. And most of us are young people, He would ask you about your area, what do you reckon, what can be done to improve a certain position. So really, I don't think there's any vacuum. I think, a lot of people are trying to be sensational on all these issues. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that everyone plays their role in terms of shaping the alternative voice, in terms of policy development in this country. So it is not only single-handedly from Raila Amolo Odinga. He consults widely, and that's the difference between Raila Odinga sort of like style of leadership and the current occupier of the House on the Hill. Okay.
We'll talk more about the developments that the president yesterday talked about, which he said will lift the country from the depths of despair to the great heights of hope. Ohenjo, coming to you, will his extraction from Kenyan politics level the playing field for the opposition, given the submissions made by Nelson Koech that there are many political dependents on Odinga's political brand in order to win seats?
Well, again, that is an interesting proposition. Anybody who's been a student of political history in this country, I think, will agree with Mheshimiwa that Raila has been a permanent feature of Kenyan politics, and with him, he's actually come out as a very strong factor in many political life in this country. And if he were to exit the political scene permanently, then it's definitely going to have a ripple effect within the people who, coalesce around him. Yeah. And especially now the Azimio movement. If you look at politicians or political figures who've thrived around Raila, a lot of them have thrived because of his appeal to his base. And once you remove him, then you're removing that base, and that means there's a vacuum underneath. I'm not so sure that many politicians within the opposition currently will be able to survive his sudden exit. I'm not really sure that, and maybe this can be expounded by Honorable Senator, that the opposition as it were today has in plan a succession framework, that works within that void that would be filled if Right Honorable Raila were to exit permanently the politics on the Kenyan scene. Yeah.
So the likely stagnation of opposition politics is what you're looking into in the event he exits the political scene in Kenya?
Yeah, and probably a natural process for that particular formation to actually reorganize itself, which then, ensures, brings into the fore of the question of how do we organize this constituency, especially given the, certain dynamics that underlie Raila's support across the country.
Okay, Honorable Nelson Koech, before we go on to the break, come back and start off with the main thematic areas of discussion. Given what we witnessed over time since multipartyism and his announcement to seek that position at the continental level, then for the government, do you agree with the assessment by the paper that the head of state must make sure he gets the post, as failure will be his personal defeat as well, in terms of probably marshalling the opposition around the protest around some of your major projects, including housing and also reforms in the healthcare sector?
You see, when you go for a contest, for those of us who are in politics, there are two options. It's either you win or you lose. So I'm sure we are the president is looking at it from that view. That, but of course, always it's in our best interest that he wins. I'm sure all stops will be pulled to make sure that Raila Odinga succeeds. As a chairman of Foreign Relations, I know what is happening behind the scene to make sure that he succeeds. And I'm certain that Raila Odinga is our next AU chairperson.
Given?
I'm almost certain. I don't want to speak so much because sometimes a lot of diplomacy happens. You don't want to look bullish and sound bullish.
Yeah.
But I know, looking at how our friends are responding to his candidature and as a person, Hon.Gitonga did mention that you say as a person, he's already known to many heads of states. You know, he's a friend to the president of Congo, he's a friend to so many presidents. And I'm sure it makes it even easy for the president to pitch for him. So he's like I said, he's a product that is sellable. He has history of exactly what is needed in AU, and it ticks all the boxes. I'm certain, almost certain, that Raila Odinga is the next chairperson.
Senator Ledhais, please, you have a point?
No, I think I just have an issue with this issue of succession. You know, for me, I believe that leaders or leadership is determined by God and also by the position that leaders put themselves. You know, there's all these discussions about who is going to succeed Raila. And I believe that Kenyans ought to stop looking at it that way. I think leaders emerge organically based on their qualifications and also based on their, capabilities and popular support. Really, there are so many small Raila Odingas, and I think all of them coming together and building ODM as a political party, we still believe that we have greater chances of taking on the leadership of this country. So really, for me, I'm looking at it this way. Raila has played a critical role in uniting this country, in bringing the people together. That unity is what we have to build. The problem with political parties in Kenya is that most political parties, save for ODM, are designed to win an election. ODM is designed as a political party to be able to deal with issue politics, and to deal with issues social development. And I think that is the one thing that we want to continue inculcating into all the young people that we are recruiting to join our political party. To know that when you come here, Raila Odinga as our figurehead, he also gets a lot of support from, everyone who comes on board. So we just need to build the fact that our political party should not just be built to be able to propagate, sort of like the winning of an election, but actually winning of all different projects. We have a lot of things that happens on the grassroots, and that depends on how deeply we are rooted in our beliefs in our political party manifesto.
Yeah.
So that is very, very key.
How about the question of personality?
I think the issue of personality is there, and there are so many personalities. But I think personalities are also shaped by the constitution of each and every political party. Because you could have a different personality that may not fit in here, and that's why I said we have to distinguish between political parties that are designed to win an election and political parties that are designed to be able to propagate politics and to be able to build the idea of politics in terms of social development. If you notice, ODM has been steady, as a political party. If you look at, on the other hand, where my brother comes from, in the last dispensation, they had a vehicle called Jubilee. This time around, they have come up with another vehicle called UDA. In 2027, my brother here will probably be wearing the tie that he's wearing now with a new political party being green, So really, they are vehicles of winning, seats in parliament and also being in government, but they are not political parties.
Okay, but as Senator Hon.Gitonga, it's disturbing because if you look at what you have mentioned of the Jubilee Party, of forming a political party, September 10th, 2016, that is formed on ideology to end ethnic balkanization, unify the country, have membership across the board with no regard for religious affiliation, even to the extent of sending officials to China to copy the Communist Party of China's model, which celebrated, fortunately, 2021, 100 years of existence. The trend shows that in the event there is disagreement at the top leadership level of these political parties, then the likelihood of disintegration is very possible, and that does not absolve the ODM party either, isn't it? In the event Odinga is absent from the political scene, suppose he wins that election.
Absolutely no.
Where is the difference then?
The difference, you've actually just mentioned what the difference is. ODM is formed based on ideology, but Jubilee and UDA are not based on ideology. They're based on interest, just simple interest. It's not the belief that a country can be built following a particular path. It is the fact that we are going to be in power. If you ask yourself, and my very good friend, who I really admire and I really like him, we refer to him as Captain Pilot, chair of a political party, and also a senator from Mandera, Ali Roba. Yeah. Ali Roba, when he came in, he joined the Azimio Brigade, but the moment we got into parliament like this, he switched camp, so that he can be able to align his interest with the current political administration. Does he believe in the ideology? Do they actually have an ideology? No. It is not based on issues. It is simply based on current interests where we want to be in power. We want to be in power. I look at the way I equate, the current UDA administration and the ODM. It is like giving a distinction between rich and wealth. Okay. Rich is just money, you've got cash, but wealth, you've got, it's old money that is able to sustain you. So I do not believe that there'll ever be a vacuum in the ODM party, in the ODM leadership, because one, I've said it clearly, Raila Odinga is really not going anywhere. And the fact that, God willing, he'll become chairperson of the
AU Commission chairperson.
Okay. That does not mean that he's not going to be a life member of ODM and also a very key stakeholder when it comes to the issues of ideology. Okay.
Standing for it, and to be factually correct as well, and to be fair to the party in power at the moment, they have well laid out manifesto with which we are holding them to account as to how they are going to be accomplishing that and the pledges they made prior to the August 9th elections 2022. Gentlemen, when we get back from the break, we'll be taking a look at the agenda before Parliament. That includes the affordable housing now at the Senate, healthcare reforms touted by the President, and also recommendations made by the National Dialogue Committee, which concluded its sittings at the Bomas of Kenya, and what appears to be the high-stakes political game, which includes the reconstitution of the IEBC, and also under the second thematic item, take a look at the state of devolution in the country. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir.
Yes, Ero.
Namna gani?
Kwa sawa.
Sijakuzungumza.